Hello, welcome back to the Father and Son Pastime podcast. I'm Patrick.
I'm Kevin.
That's my dad. Dad, it's been a minute of how long we haven't done podcasts. Somebody was getting married and on his honeymoon. And I'm still able to watch baseball even in Jamaica.
Yeah, you know what? We haven't done one since the All-Star game?
I feel like we did a trade review podcast, and I know we did the Cy Young Award draft. I want to say they're in August or early September.
Okay, it's been a while.
It's been a while for sure.
Yeah.
It hasn't been where this time last year, as soon as 162 ended, we did a playoff, prediction. We said who's going to win this. It was the new wild card, the new playoff format. Mm-hmm. We didn't do it this year because when the playoffs started, I literally was getting married and then got shipped off to Jamaica for like 2 weeks. But I was...
Like as a punishment.
I know, exactly. Like a true fan, everybody. I still found the one sports bar at the resort that had baseball in Jamaica, and I was able to watch a good amount of the playoffs in the postseason.
All the upsets.
Congrats to the Texas Rangers. Let's start off there.
Yeah.
First-time winners, a la the Washington Nationals of 2019. I think we both had the Rangers making the playoffs.
Yes, we did.
But that's all we had.
Right.
We certainly didn't have...
They were in the top 6.
We didn't see another Corey Seager repeat World Series MVP.
Yeah.
We did see, speaking of their opponents, even though they lost, the Arizona Diamondbacks came out of nowhere.
I had them.
You had them in the playoffs?
Yeah.
I did not, openly. That's fine.
Yeah.
But I did have Corbin Carroll winning the Rookie of the Year, I believe, as did you.
Yeah, and Gunnar.
Do you think, Dad... I'm already going off track. Do you think that the
What else
awards were kind of easy to call this year? Shohei winning MVP.
Yes. I think you're correct.
The Rookies of the Years, the Managers of the Years.
So far, it's been, right down that you could predict who was going to win these awards. It hasn't even been close. So I agree. I think it's been chalk, as they say, along the way. But yeah, people had great years. There's teams that were phenomenal this year. It's ironic that each of the 3 teams that won over 100 games did not make it, into the finals. They all got upset during the way. And it's the wild card teams, again, that really paved the way to the World Series. And the Diamondbacks were the last team to qualify, like the Phillies were the prior year, to make it to World Series. Maybe you don't have to win the division.
Well, speaking of chalk, some of these awards were chalk, but not the blue chip teams. We saw not just upsets, Dad, in the playoffs, but in the regular season themselves.
Yes.
We saw some implosions, just a crazy amount of what is going on in New York or St. Louis or wherever.
The White Sox.
And then we had just no one. Let's go back to the over-under podcast. I think we both took the under on the Cincinnati Reds. Where do they come from?
Yeah.
How does every rookie click? But I know we're going to get into it. Just wanted to give the flowers to the Texas Rangers, obviously, Arizona Diamondbacks, who rightfully deserve it. Phillies and Astros, we almost saw a rematch. It just didn't last that way.
Game away for the Phillies, and they just
Game away for the Astros.
Yeah, playing at home.
Yeah, both of them.
Yeah, I know.
Both of them. I have another thing about just who to give congratulations to this year, and it's to DraftKings for taking all of our money because we bet on so many things that didn't happen. I might have bet on the St. Louis Cardinals to win the division, begin the season, end of April, end of May, and end of June. Thought they were going to come back. I want to start, Dad, with the disasters. What happened in St. Louis?
Well,
easiest division in baseball, possibly, and they just let every other team run over them.
They finished really poorly. Along the way, they were kind of like middle of the division, and then all of a sudden, slowly but surely, August, September, they gave up. They have a talented lineup. Spent some money in the offseason on Contreras, who thought would be the middle of the lineup thumper along the way. Pitching gave out at the trade deadline. They shipped a few folks out, but to finish in last place in the Central Division, unbelievable. 20 games under 500.
I don't know the last 20 games?
71 and 91.
Wouldn't that mean they're only like 11 games from 500?
No, 20 games under.
I see what you're saying.
Yeah.
I can't recall a Cardinals team coming in last place in my lifetime with the Central, especially when there were 6 teams in the Central with the Astros. I was just mortified. I had this note for a little bit later in the podcast, but it's about the Cardinals. I'll bring it up now. The Nolan Arenado era of consecutive Gold Gloves is also over. Key Brian Hayes, who arguably deserved it last year. I know people were kind of thinking that, Nolan got it because he's Nolan. Well, he truly earned it this year. He's still obviously one of the best third basemen in the game, but everything collapsed defensively too. I mean, you had a Gold Glove infield, and I don't think any of those Gold Glovers from last year were even in the finalists for Gold Gloves this year.
Yeah. And Goldschmidt was in the MVP talk around midseason, and he fell. He had a great year.
There was just a lot of everything went wrong. And I know, like, for the Reds, you could argue everything went right. But I don't know. We're not getting into predictions yet. That's going to be the next podcast from the day after. For our subscribers, the day after Thanksgiving, that weekend, we do a lot of podcasts, and we'll really do a deep dive on the future of the NL Central. But in short, very impressed with the Reds, horrified with the Cardinals. Dad, do you want to stay in the disaster, the tornado? Do you want me to point out any highlights?
Let's go tornado.
All right. Let's stay, because where tornadoes are, they're in the Midwest. So let's stay in the Midwest. The White Sox.
We can do a whole movie, The Twister.
There's supposed to be a new Twister movie in 2024.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah. So shameless plug to that movie. Be a sponsor. The White Sox.
Oh.
Even more, I mean, they had definitely more losses. They had less wins. Somehow didn't, the Royals being in that division, they would have been last in every other division, maybe not the AL West.
Over 100 losses.
They literally got rid of everybody but Dylan Cease, it felt like. I don't know who was pitching for them.
Who's on the block right now.
Right. I don't know who was pitching for them post September 1st. They used the waiver wire. We'll talk about that soon, too.
Let's face it, they quit.
Everybody quit. And they kept their manager, which is beyond weird to me.
Yeah.
Some of these teams, like the Angels, who also are bad, but they fired their manager with a better record. So I don't know what to say anymore about Chicago, but that was just such a disappointing year.
It's one of your favorite towns.
We did see personal highlights. We did see a new stadium this year, and it was the Chicago White Sox.
Didn't they play the Rangers?
They did play the Rangers, so we did see the World Champions. But I'm pretty sure the White Sox, did they lose that game or win?
Yes, they did.
Okay, just making sure. It was a tight game, though.
It was.
I do remember
through
being
about
tight.
5.
Yeah.
And then the Rangers blew, and Garcia, I think, hit a home run, and that was a signal of what to come.
It really was.
But yeah, 61 and 101.
Yep, that speaks for itself.
Yeah.
The Angels, Dad, the other AL disaster teams, are on my list mainly because they thought they could contend. They traded what little prospect capital they have, and they still end up losing Shohei. They didn't even get close to the playoffs, and now they have not a single prospect in the top 100 list in baseball. Not a single one. They are ranked in one of the worst farm systems in baseball. They could have completely changed that narrative in their future if they traded Shohei. They made a mistake not trading him, and were a disaster in the second half.
Yeah. And Shohei has lots of suitors going to give him whatever contract he's looking for, even though he's can't pitch next year. He will, whatever team he ends up with, instant contender.
Yeah, and he wants to go to a contender. And again, we'll get into predictions, but an absolute now could be even more longer than just a season for the Angels.
You feel bad for Mike Trout.
Yeah.
How many losing teams has he been on?
I think all but one. I think he's seen one wild card game.
That's it's like Ernie Banks.
Yeah.
It's like you go through all that and you say, I never played for a winner, great ball player, but never experienced a playoff atmosphere. Mm-hmm. I think maybe one game they had or something like that, but he's never ever experienced a run to the World Series. Shame.
Dad, what happened in New York?
On both ends of the town.
I know. The Yankees, again, they finished with above a 500 record, but nobody cares. If you're a Yankees fan, nobody gives a shit if you finish above 500 but you don't make the playoffs or win a World Series. It's going on now 15 years without them even being in a World Series. New York had the most expensive salary in baseball. And how many games? I know you have the standings.
82 and 80.
No, the Mets. The Mets.
Oh,
Sorry,
Mets,
I switched.
Oh, the Mets are unbelievable. The Mets 75 and 87.
You cannot have a 75 and 87 record and spend $300 million on your team's salary.
Even when you flushed out the team at the trade deadline, you had to eat most of that contracts.
They were paying down like Verlander's and Scherzer's contract in order to get a prospect or two back. And it's just, I like Steve Cohen because he is willing to pay players money. He's willing to do things for the fans. Like, he is spending money. And I think that's what fans want owners to do for their team. But I don't know if he knows baseball that well. I mean, he's made a lot of mistakes.
Yeah. I don't know if you read this, but now his big new investment is to revitalize the area around Citi Field and to make it friendlier for people to ride their bikes to the stadium. So he's saying, hey, it's real hard to get to that stadium. His now goal, spending millions with the city, is to make it easier to get to his stadium, and so more people can go to the game. And apparently you have to park so far away that he's saying, I'm going to get bike paths so people can ride their bikes to Citi Field.
I don't know if I was an owner, I'd care about that at all. I would just put a good product on the field and say, get to my stadium.
The number one problem that the fans said was getting to the field.
No, the number one problem was the team on the field.
Right, but I'm saying before the season.
Oh,
They took a survey.
Well, retake the survey because no one's claiming that problem in November.
They got old in a hurry when they made all those investments and just went on the wrong side of 30. If you really look at it, they bet and they lost the bet.
I also don't know the last time I've heard an owner openly say, we're going to not contend in 2024. We're going to use it as a rebuilding year, and we're going to learn from it and be stronger in 2025. That takes some chutzpah to say.
Apparently they're going to trade some of their boys.
But they also said that during the season because he had press conferences. Also, love the idea of owners doing press conferences. I think they should do that more because not a lot of people know. If an average baseball fan, you might know your team's owner and Stevie Cohen. So the fact that the owner of the Colorado Rockies is completely unknown to you people at home is a problem. It should be kind of well known and well accessed. Dad, let's get off the grind. Let's get off the negativity. Let's talk about our hometown Orioles. 101 freaking wins. Fantastic season. Terrible playoff, but hey, they don't have any playoff experience. They're going to do better in the future. Hopefully they'll buy some people this offseason. They can build a better contender in the future. But how fun was it in Baltimore going to so many of those games?
Oh, yeah. I mean, it was great. I mean, you're talking 2 years ago, they were losing 100 games.
Yeah, just a complete flip.
So you're talking about they drafted really well. You got to give credit to Elias and his scouting department. They really did a great job of their draft. They put money into the Dominican and the international draft. All of a sudden, you're seeing all those, great drafts come together. They still have the number one system in baseball with more talent coming up. They may be even, as good or better next year, but they gotta, they need a closer and they need some more starting pitching and probably some people in middle relief. But to think of that young team winning 101 games, astronomical. And all of a sudden they're getting all the awards as well. Yeah. But yeah, you got to give them credit. And the Rays were on their heels the entire year, and they didn't succumb to that. So good for them. They didn't choke.
I'm not going to talk about the Rays, but it was impressive how many injuries they sustained and still had that many wins. But that's all I'm going to say.
And they're getting a new stadium.
I don't know if that's what you're focused on. Maybe focus on trainers.
No, I'm not.
We've talked about the Rangers. Obviously, both of these teams exceeded expectations. I really wish, even though I openly put money on the Astros to win the World Series at the beginning of the season, I really wish we saw an Orioles-Rangers 7-game set because that quick, once you lose 2 games at home in the DS, you're done. Like, you're not going to be able to...
Gotta have a miracle.
Right. So I wish that was the CS, and maybe that could have been a longer, better series and not just a quick sweep. It very well could be next year because the Rangers are going to stay in contention for a while. The Orioles definitely have a long window with their youth. But I don't know if it's going to slowly set on the Astros. This could be the last year of contention for the Astros. But Orioles-Rangers is a playoff series I think we can get used to seeing. So enjoy it while it lasts. In the NL, all of my other positive, really exceeding expectations teams. Talked about the Reds, but I want to talk about Miami. I know they, necessarily didn't make a big splash anywhere. They didn't go far in the playoffs, but they got the manager of the year, and they have young, controllable pitching. They need offense, but they were fun to watch. completely hit the over on every early season, before the season started prediction. Who would have thought that the Miami Marlins would have more wins than New York Mets? If that was a bet on March 31st of DraftKings, who's taking it?
No one.
Right.
And you get paid big money if you did take
Right,
it.
$5 pays out $500.
Yeah. And the Marlins kind of won on speed, defense, and pitching. I mean, they have another great farm system. They do really very well in the international market. But along the way, the Marlins kind of stayed good most of the year. They never really went back and forth. They kind of stayed in the middle of the hunt, and kind of got enough victories to get into the playoffs. And, it was great to see them get in there. But, yeah, they were the surprise team of the East by far.
A lot of one-run games that went in Miami's favor. I know that some people want to call the Padres season a disaster. They finished above 500. It looked like a disaster at times. But they also had the league-leading loss in one-run games. So just that turns around, they're in the playoffs.
Yeah.
I have to say the Diamondbacks have exceeded expectations. How tough, Dad? I really want to ask you this. So the Diamondbacks got to the World Series and the worst record in the postseason. If you're the Seattle Mariners and you miss, or the Chicago Cubs, you can go that route too, and you miss the playoffs by a game. Both of those teams, I believe, missed the playoffs by a game.
Very good.
How mad are you? I mean, literally the Rangers are in the AOS just like the Mariners. One game that could have been the Seattle Mariners' future,
Yeah.
and then one, like the Cubs could have been in exactly where the Diamondbacks route.
Yeah.
How mad are those two teams being a game away?
So mad you fired David Ross and bring in counsel to say, hey, and right now the Cubs are winning the offseason by doing that managerial move because a lot of people in Chicagoland blame Ross for their crummy September.
I mean, one run can be a manager mistake. One run could be a manager's fortune.
He made many boo-boos. So
Sure.
he didn't utilize his bench well enough. The regulars got tired. The bullpen was atrocious. They were all overworked. He made enough mistakes that Jed Hoyer said, you know what? I need a new voice. And they got probably arguably the best manager in baseball.
Seattle just had such an up and down season too.
Yeah, they were in first place for a while, remember?
They were also in like fourth place for a while.
Yeah, they had a hell of a streak.
I believe there was a time where the Angels were above them. So you have Julio, you have all this young talent, you have some fantastic pitching. You host the All-Star game, you host Home Run Derby, and you miss the playoffs by one, and you see a division rival win the World Series. It's just a tough pill to swallow. Mm-hmm. I think you're right. I think both of those taste, almost maybe moments are really going to motivate these teams in the offseason and then in next year as well.
Don't forget, when you look at the free agents, there's so many players coming from Asia, Korea, Japan,
Sure.
all that. Seattle's always done well with the Asian market. They may be in the mix for some pitching, which they probably could use. I think the Mariners are going to be active.
Again, we will get in the prediction draft in a week or so. But I just wanted to just think about how difficult that is to swallow if you are a Julio Rodriguez or if you are a Jared Kelenic and you're seeing an Evan Carter who's 21 years old that gets called up in freaking August.
Double-A player.
Win the World Series, and you're like, I'm that guy. I can be that guy. I could have hit that hit or had that moment. People want to be that postseason hero, but your team's got to get there. Dad, is there any other teams you want to highlight before we look at individual players?
You know what? You've done a marvelous job. I think just want to talk about the Cubs.
Sure, why not? So surprising. I'll take a sip of my water.
The Cubs were really horrible first half, and then they got in a heck of a July and August, and then fell apart in September, really bad September. They were predicted to be in the playoff hunt, like had a 92%, guarantee they were going to be in the playoffs, and it all eroded in 2 weeks in September. I think they'll be extremely active coming up, but it pains everybody to be that close and to be kind of like the top seed as the wild card and then fall out of it. And like you mentioned, the Reds had a great year, and don't forget the Pirates were going really
They
well.
won the spring.
Correct. And then fell apart as well. But the Pirates got a really good minor league system. The Reds do. So between the Cubs, Reds, and Pirates, I think that's going to be the strength of the Central for a while. And then the other two will kind of like fight. But I think it's going to be real competitive next year in that division.
Another thing that DraftKings does that I think is just a waste of money for any better is that if you can guess the final outcome of any division, you're going to win a good amount of money just because it's so hard. Both the AL East and the NL Central back in March, I think if you put $5 and you got the exact 5 order, you won $125 because it was that difficult to guess who was going to go then.
Yeah.
So keep your $5 because
who would have predicted the Yankees and Red Sox would be at the bottom?
Nobody.
Yeah.
Nobody. If Orioles Rays, it feels an opposite order thing. Like if you told me the Red Sox, Yankees, Blue Jays, Rays, Orioles, that's more familiar in 95% of baseball minds.
Yeah. Flip it and then
flip it. Like, yep, that's the East. What year was that? 2004. Like you just feel it. It's there.
Yeah.
That I do want to say. I want to highlight us. We're talking about individual people, obviously. This is the only little thing that we did was the over/under prediction. We've already settled up. I got my cash. I won. I beat them by 2. But people at home don't think that either one of us knows what we're talking about either. I had 14 out of 30 right. My dad had 12 out of 30 right on the over/under predictions. It is hard. Again, DraftKings,
this
Vegas,
year especially.
They know. A lot were like within a game or 2 of their March predictions. So again, you might want to save your money. I'm just lucky that I was one of the few bets I won this year, and I did not make it with any betting service. I made it with my dad. Players, Dad. Do we need to talk about Shohei Ohtani? I mean, the guy's freaking nature. Do we all know at home how good he is?
I think the fun part about it was the home run he hit in Baltimore was just a rocket. And he has an incredible amount of power. And, to think about this. The pitch at a major league level, on the level he does, and to be a hitter, think about how impossible that is. Mm-hmm. To be a two-way player in today's era of baseball, and he does it, at an elite caliber. Mm-hmm. What a freak of nature.
I don't know if people at home like statistics or like WAR. Some people are big fans. Some people are not. I like it. I'm a big fan. Shohei Ohtani's MVP season, he had a 10 WAR. That means he is 10 times better than any other possible player in the area. So if you are looking at a good season, you might have like a 2 to maybe a 3 WAR. You probably could be an all-star at that level. If you are having a great season, maybe you're at a 4 or 5, a la like Freddie Freeman, Matt Olson, Mookie Betts. If you're having a 6 or a 7 WAR, you are in contention, if not the winner of the MVP. If you're having an above an 8, you're having an historic season. If you're having a 10 or above, you're in such rare air that almost only Hall of Famers or steroid users have had that good of a season. People in the Hall of Fame have like a 70 WAR and above. Shohei's halfway there, and he's only 28 years old.
Yeah.
And
he got hurt.
And it does not really affect his Hall of Fame caliber at all.
Yeah.
It may affect a couple $1 million in his contract, but people will still take a huge risk, or not a risk, a huge sum of money because they know it'll pay out.
Yeah. He'll be chased by the elite teams, and he wants to play for a winner. So right off the bat, you have people that are in contention or have hopes of being in contention. Right now the Dodgers are like mentioned, but I think he's open book to anyone who wants to make him the franchise guy.
Yep. He wants to contend, so it's not going to be a non-contender.
It won't be with the Angels.
It won't be the Rays. It won't be the Angels. I mean, there's plenty of people you can eliminate.
Yeah.
I did want to just shout out to some retirees, whether it's not confirmed yet or it is confirmed, but Miguel Cabrera, Joey Votto, Zach Greinke. I hope all 3 are in the Hall of Fame. 1 is a first ballot, and then obviously Greinke and Votto can have a conversation. But we got to see the last year of 3 franchise. I mean, Zach Greinke's bounced around, but 2 franchise players and then 1 just very unique pitcher personality.
Did Votto leave the door open a little bit?
Yes, I mean he hasn't turned in his paperwork yet, like Miguel Cabrera. Votto's option got declined from Cincinnati. Well, I'm sure we'll talk about that when we go into it. He could resign elsewhere. It does not look like it's going to be Cincinnati. I believe he's 40. I think Greinke's 39 as well. He could retire. I don't know if he wants to try one last thing. He's a fun guy.
He knows baseball.
He knows baseball, but I don't know if he can play at the caliber he once did.
Yeah.
But regardless, great career.
Yes.
Great career.
Yeah.
Any of these names that you want to highlight, I think you'll highlight one because he's a Cub, or was a Cub. Adolis Garcia, Matt Olson, Blake Snell, Cody Bellinger, Ronald Acuna, or Luis Ariz. Any of those that fantastic seasons you want to talk about?
Bellinger, you got to give him credit. You know, he bet on himself. And he said, hey, give me a 1-year deal. And, you know, for $18 million, which is not much anymore. And he said, I just want a chance to rebound. And he's in his late 20s as well. And he had a fantastic year. He was a toast of the town.
He's still young. Yeah.
Yeah. And he played first base and center field. And without him, the Cubs would have never been, you know, in contention for a playoff gig. He had a great year. And Garcia, what a player. What an exciting player. I mean, he was the spirit of the Rangers. So those two, you know, come to mind. I'll let you have the other three.
I'm glad that you talked about the two that you did. Ronald Acuna Jr., we were talking about just chalk picks for Shohei got MVP. Acuna got MVP as well.
Yeah.
No one has ever done a 40-70 season. 40 home runs, 70 stolen bases. 90% of hitters would dream of doing one of those things, not both.
But he's not a small man.
No,
70
but Shohei steals bases too, and he's not small.
Right, but I'm just saying, I never would have predicted he could steal 70 bases. You know, what an accomplishment.
Coming in to next year, they're both the chalk MVP picks, and Shohei doesn't even have a team, and he's not going to be pitching. He's still probably, you know, top 3 in MVP predictions. Luis Ariz flirted with hitting 400. He obviously did not come near that. Blake Snell is a name I want to mention. Cy Young winner, second time. One more, and he's going to be like in Hall of Fame. God, to be honest. But now he's at like the Tim Lincecum, Francisco Liriano status. Also led the league in walks.
Interesting.
Only time that I can remember. I'm sure there's someone out there that says, well, actually, Bert Blyleven led the league in walks, or something like that from 50 years ago. But he led the league in walks and was still a Cy Young. If you ever watched him pitch, Dad, I know he was on the Padres this year and he never got, you know, the focus on the East Coast. But if it was 2-0 or 3-0, he would just walk people. He would just be like, I'm not going to get this guy.
So next guy.
And he would I just want the next guy. It's very impressive to me that he's so confident in his pitch styles that basically if he didn't get the call he wanted or that the batter didn't swing, he'll just be like, walk. Just go to first. I don't want to deal with you anymore. I want a fresh start with this next batter. And then he would strike that guy out, make him ground out, pop up.
Great movement.
He does have great movement. I think, as we look at free agency, I think that will almost hurt him because so many teams will think, well, I don't want people on the base because people are going to steal. People are going to, there's a balk. I mean, there's so many things you can't control. Yeah. I don't want players to get put on base.
Yeah, with the bigger bases and everything. So, yeah.
Matt Olson is getting a highlight from me because he got snubbed from the MVP voting. He was the league overall leader in home runs this year, and he wasn't even a finalist in the NL voting.
Atlanta had an impressive lineup.
Yeah.
They didn't, 1 through 9, they came at you.
It is hard to, obviously, so many people in that lineup hit, but when you have Acuna and then Mookie and Freddie as your 1, 2, 3 MVP voting, maybe Olsen understands that he's amongst probable Hall of Famers.
Yeah.
But still, his year...
He was the MVP of his team.
Correct. He wasn't even the MVP.
So you can't get
He
out
wasn't
the
the MVP of first base because Freddie Freeman had a better year.
Yeah.
But it's just... so
but where
tough.
would the Braves be without him? You know?
Well, they would have Freddie Freeman, hopefully. But who knows? You're right.
Yeah.
Dad, there's a few changes that happened in baseball this year that I wanted to talk about, and you let me know after we saw them for a full year if you liked them, if they're not fully developed yet, or you want them gone from baseball. The pitch clock. Thoughts on that?
You know what? I like it. It took a while to get used to it. They're trying to tweak it down to 18 seconds now. Mm-hmm. So I'm thinking it does speed up, and after a while you just got used to it and you didn't notice it. So I think the pitchers got used to it. I think the players liked it. At least the batters did, because they kind of knew that I didn't have to step out. I'm in there. I think it helped the game. So I vote to keep that in there. I wasn't for it at the beginning, but I kind of like the changes. Most games are 2.5 hours now. So I mean, if you're taking a family of 4 to a night game, you're out of there by 9:30. So that may help. I mean, attendance at the and major league level was up considerably. Minor league parks were up as well. People are going back to the ballparks. Some of the rule changes, associated with that. I'm thinking it might be, but apparently baseball is rising in popularity again, which is great.
MLB would say that these changes have added fans and added seats, butts in the seats.
Yeah.
Pitch clock, I think, at times was fine. I think, obviously, at times the umpires didn't necessarily feel the moment if it was a kid's first at bat or if it was somebody's, big moment or something like that. They didn't really, hey, this doesn't apply to him. I know that's, the opposite of a rule because you can't pick and choose who rules apply to, but you should be able to have some discretion. I think if they're able to tweak that in. I also forgot when the pitch clock was established when we were having these conversations in February and March that batters and pitchers still got a timeout.
Correct. They step out.
It is not this automatic, uncontrollable shot clock like you would have in
college basketball
or something like that.
Yeah.
Literally, if you took your timeout, it doesn't start. Oh, you're waiting for the pitcher. 7 seconds left. Timeout. It doesn't start at 7. I mean, it would reset completely. So that is just a little interesting tidbit of timeouts also reset the pitch clock, not pausing like a true timeout in sports. Wider bases, Dad. Did you like them? Did you not like them?
I liked them. I think it helped tremendously with stolen bases. I mean, a guy like Nico Horner of the Cubs had 40 or 50 stolen bases. Not a base stealer, but just that 6 inches on each end helped tremendously, and a lot of people beat that in the playoffs. There are a lot of stolen bases that added to the excitement. I think again, it's more offense in the game, and I'm all for that. But I think the bigger bases helped.
Yeah, I'm for stolen bases, so I am definitely more in favor of this, or I liked it more than the pitch clock. I don't necessarily believe that they made it a safer game or the other bases before were less safe for collisions or anything like that. The biggest collision is still home plate. Collisions at third base did not see a decrease or increase at this for this wider base. But if it can speed up the game literally by people stealing and it creates a little action on every movement, I like that.
Yeah.
And I also do think if we're talking collisions, just like in softball, there should be safety bases where if we don't want collisions at first or home, have something that's a safety base for people to run into.
I think first base was the only base that
you
could step on a heel or something like that. So did that help first base? I think it did. But the other ones is just closer to run and it's split second to throw to second. It's kind of exciting. Yeah. So, adds to the game.
Speaking of first base, Dad, obviously there was limitations on how many times a pitcher could throw over to first. Did this impact you watching the game at all? Did it matter? Did it not matter? Did you like it?
I like it limited throws because before it used to be a cat and mouse and it'd be 3 to 4 minutes back and forth. Now they concentrate on the batter and move on. I like it not so many throws over.
This is the one thing that I'm somewhere between I don't like it and it doesn't really matter to me. I like the chess game of throwing over, throwing back over, because you knew what pitchers didn't throw over, right? And you could really take a bigger lead on those.
John Lester.
Because this, it's like, hey, you're limiting, so, well, maybe John's going to try at least one. He has a limit. He's got to at least try to keep me close. I don't know. I just feel like that played into it a little bit more. And I kind of like the back and forth. When I would go to baseball games and if your team is on first base and you're getting the lead and the opposing pitcher throws over, everyone boos.
I know.
And I'm like, this is smart baseball. That's great. You might get an out. You're trying to keep them close. And there's also no difference between if I threw over to first base, that counts. But if my catcher threw post pitch, it doesn't count in any way.
Yeah.
So like again, that. There's always little loopholes. Again, that could go away next year or be more enforced, and I probably wouldn't notice it.
Yeah.
But that's not that. Neither of these three things were my biggest issue with baseball this year. Pitch clock, fine, I understand. Water bases, I'm for it. Throwing over to first, again, I'm not going to fight for or against it. This problem of the waiver wire, I think, is going to be a huge problem for baseball moving forward. I don't know if teams forgot about it for the past couple of years, 5-10 years, and then teams all of a sudden realize that just because the trade deadline is passed doesn't mean you still can't get rid of your players. We saw huge big names put on the waivers wire in August because I'm not going to make the playoffs. Does anybody want my team? Does anybody want my player? Because I don't want to pay him anymore. Just pay him the rest of his contract, and he's yours. Big names, people that might get $150, $200 million this offseason.
The Red Sox have made that a huge August trade. Yeah.
So these waivers where, Lucas Giolito went, Hunter Renfroe went, we're looking at these big name players that just get, people basically just put a claim on them. And if you are the lowest ranked team in terms of your standing, Cleveland got 3 or 4.
Yeah.
I hate that because Cleveland wasn't really in contention.
They did it so no one else would get them.
Right. So that's a problem. Then you're
Reds did it as well.
Right. So then you're just stonewalling people so you don't get blown out in your division.
Yeah.
Like, why isn't it not a bidding war? Like, why is it not like mid-season free agency? Or why isn't there a better monitoring of waiver? You can only put one of your players on waivers per year. Yeah. Not the whole team, LA. The Angels put, I think, 6 people on waivers at some point.
Yeah, and good players.
That's something they just acquired in July for the trade, and then bada bing, bada boom, see ya.
Yeah. I think the old way was better, that you put them on waivers. If you got a claim, you could make a trade with that team and all that stuff.
Go.
Yeah.
But
you're right. That was pretty bad in August.
I just look at it also from a player's perspective, and the MLBPA is going to get involved because you're having Lucas Giolito go from Chicago to LA to Cleveland in a matter of 30 days. I don't know if Lucas has a family. I'm assuming he does. But you got to move. You got to... there's a lot of mental challenges that go along with moving in 3 different teams in a month that I don't think is quite right. I know there's no trade clauses in baseball. You got to earn those. I understand that. But maybe just you get one veto waiver in your career or something like that, or 5 years of service time equal you get to veto a waiver claim. I don't know. It's just a little silly to me how kind of crazy it got, and just to dump salary because you're not going to make the playoffs.
Maybe have 2 trading deadlines. Put one earlier and one later than the June 31st one. So who knows? But yeah, something's got to be done. Yeah. I agree with that one.
Those were kind of my notes on the game itself, the individuals, and then the teams at play. That's kind of how I wanted to attack this. Do you have anything that I missed? Any other recaps in case you missed it type of 2023 season stuff?
I just think that overall it was an exciting year. I'm glad someone won the World Series that has never won the World Series before.
5 teams left that have never won it.
And, that was exciting. The Rangers had an exciting club. Kudos to them. It was great, the playoffs, the Phillies with their fans, and the excitement there was in, the stadium in Philadelphia. I think it was an exciting October. A lot of people that won 100 games and got that bye, they don't like that bye now because they were idle for a week. They want maybe a one-and-done playoff, not best of 3, so they don't sit around as much. So I don't know if there's going to be changes with the playoff system, but when baseball said we're going to add a 6th team to the playoff rounds, which is a great idea, more teams in the playoffs, they got to look at it stretching the season, and what about those teams that won 100 games? Are they being punished for winning that much and having a week off? Well, I think it hurt the Orioles tremendously because the young guys need a repetition, and they got in Rangers, and they were flat. So I don't know. That's going to be examined for the playoffs, but I thought playoff baseball this year was fantastic.
I think the playoff structure is a valid concern from a lot of teams and baseball players and fans. It's been changed a lot in my lifetime.
Yes, it has.
Severe. In your lifetime, it's been insane. It went from
2 winners,
right?
National League, American League.
There's your World Series.
Yeah. They were done by, mid-October.
Right. There was no Mr. November.
Yeah.
And 2020 was still the craziest year for baseball ever, and I don't think we'll ever top it, and I hope we never will. I never want to see baseball enter like the NBA, where half the teams make the playoffs, and it's 2 months for playoffs. It's just too much. I like the crazy one-game wild card winner take all. That's so fun. I have tuned into it every year since it started. I want to say in like 2012, 2013, because I don't care if it's two teams I don't like, or I don't care if it's the Rays versus the Yankees. At game, awesome.
Yeah, win and go on.
So much expectation. So if you tell me there's more than one of those in a given offseason, given postseason, I'm definitely tuning in.
They look at it from the major league perspective. They look at it as they'll get some hometown visitation. So let's say 2 out of 3, 2 in Baltimore, 1 in Texas. So each team gets in the first round is all 3 at the better record. So the second rounders back and forth. So one and done might help, but it really doesn't lengthen the season. I mean, this World Series was done by the end of October.
Yeah.
So
November 1st was the World Series. Yeah.
So I'm just thinking that a lot of people, the 3 100-game winners didn't do well with the playoffs, but that could be sour grapes. Winner and go on. So if they won those games, they wouldn't be complaining.
I mean, the Astros the year before had the same bye, and they ended up winning the World Series. So I don't know. Yeah. It's maybe your team is just better. You got hot at the right time. You caught fire.
Yeah. So who knows? But I think baseball, again, I love baseball. I'm glad it's on the forward pension of the attendance and fan appreciation. It's a great game. So I hopefully it does well, and it got it. I mean, the thing of downtown Baltimore was not doing well, but financially the Orioles really helped the city of Baltimore, with visitation and tourism.
Sports always
that's
does.
Great. Yeah.
Dad, this has been a fantastic recap of a very fun and surprising 2023 MLB season, for better or for worse for a lot of teams, depending on your perspective. We have a lot of things coming up still in 2023. The MLB season is done, but our podcast season really is just getting little hotter, Dad, little hot stove reports.
Heat up that fireplace.
If you're not doing anything, if you're traveling on these Thanksgiving holidays, tune in. We're going to be recording pretty much all day the day after Thanksgiving. That's our Black Friday. We do off-season outlooks for pretty much every team. We do trade rumors, trade predictions, and the top 50 free agent predictions as well. So we really discuss everything. Plenty of hot takes, especially by me. I will definitely be saying some off-the-wall things already. I'm queuing up. But it's really fun to do that with my dad, and we appreciate it's one of our most viewed podcasts of every single year. So again, tune into that. I just want to advertise that. Sorry for such a long gap. Life happens. So thanks for being patient with me there. And if you have any cool draft ideas or topics you want us to explore more, we did a lot of the research during the COVID times of some of those like deeper dives into different, weirder parts of baseball history. Happy to do that again. Just leave a comment. Feel free to send us a DM or a message. We'll always talk with you, and there should be maybe some collabs with either other podcasts coming up or other sort of baseball personalities. We're certainly going to work on it and ramp back up into this podcast. I mean, we're over 100 episodes. We're already in like a legacy format anyways. But think you
about that, 100 episodes.
We're deep into it now. I think we're like 120. But again, thank you for watching for all these years, for all these hours, for all these episodes. Plenty more to come. If you have somehow watched all 45 minutes of this video and you haven't subscribed to our channel, please do that. Give us a like and follow on Facebook or Twitter or X or whatever it's called, and Instagram. We're at Pastime Podcast _ And again, we're the father and son Pastime Podcast.
How many years have we been doing this?
Officially on YouTube, I want to say we're going into our 5th year.
Okay.
But
tell the viewers how it started.
Well, it started, literally talking on when I was on college on Thanksgiving breaks. My dad and I would just share our free agent predictions.
Kitchen table.
And then we would be like, oh, you know what? We got a lot right that year. Maybe we should record ourselves. Yeah. And then we just did an audio recording of it, and we never listened to it. And we're like, why don't we just do a video? Yeah. And then we're like, let's do a podcast. Yeah. So it really has grown from just predicting landing spots of free agents to now doing bets and podcasts and predictions and trade predictions. And like I said, collaborating with other sports media people as well. So it has certainly grown, but I'm always with this guy no matter what. He's next to me. This is a father and son business. It's a father and son pastime podcast. So thank you for watching, and I hope you enjoyed the 2023 season as much as we did.
Happy Thanksgiving.